Hi, thank you for joining us today for the dynamic duo, Koha and Aspen Discovery, an open source love story.
Cal Marquise, and I work as an Aspen implementation specialist at Bywater Solutions, and I'm in St. Pete, Florida. And I've been a librarian previously to here. I was a public librarian in public libraries for about 8 years. So I'll pass it on to Vicki to say hey.
I'm Vicki Stever. I am the coordinator of the Okaloosa County Public Library Cooperative. We're up in the Northwest Florida Panhandle, and I've been a librarian for about 20 years, and I have spent time at both of the Air Force libraries here in Okaloosa County.
Again, my name is Jessie, and I've been working at Bywater for about almost 7 years. And prior to that, I was at TBLC down in the Tampa Bay Library Consortium. So we are excited to talk a little bit today about our libraries, open source, and just the love story between the two. So Vicki's going to kick us off.
Well, to give you a little context, I'm in Okaloosa County, as I said, up in the Florida Panhandle. We are a single county library cooperative. We have 6 independent city libraries in our county. The county itself doesn't have any libraries, so we have that interlocal agreement where the 6 cities provide service to everyone in the county, regardless of where they live, regardless of where they pay taxes. We've been around since 1997, so we'll be soon celebrating our 25th anniversary. We're a decent sized county. Our surface population is about 211,000. We go all the way from beaches on the coastline to the Alabama line up to the north.
All right. Next, we'll talk a little bit about Bywater Solutions. So we provide support for open source products. We started back in 2009 supporting the Koha ILS. And over the last 13 years, we have grown to support over 6 different products, including, of course, Aspen Discovery, which we'll be talking about today. And we support 2,500 libraries worldwide, most of those here in the States, and then some internationally. Just a quick background about Koha. Koha was established in the year 2000 in New Zealand. It was developed by a library that worked very closely with a development company. And when they developed Koha, they had one main goal in mind, and that was to make sure that Koha was open source so libraries worldwide could download and use the system. So for the last 22 years, the Koha system has grown. There's 2 major releases a year, and there's millions of libraries worldwide that are using the Koha system. It is a web-based system, meaning that no matter where you're at and you have access to Wi-Fi or a network, you have a fully functional ILS to manage all of your patrons, your circ, your cataloging, acquisitions, and a robust reports module.
So in 2019, Bywater Solutions started supporting Aspen Discovery, which is a discovery layer that sits atop your ILS. So it could be Koha, it could be, it's ILS agnostic. So currently, I believe we're supporting about 7 different ILSs with others still coming down in the pipeline all the time. So our goal is to eventually just support all of your ILSs. But right now we have over 500 libraries worldwide, mostly in the States and in Canada. But we're also getting increased interest in Europe, like the UK, and also Saudi Arabia. So we're really excited to grow our global open source community with Aspen Discovery. And we operate in Aspen with 4 goals. We want to make it easy for your patrons to use, easy for your staff to be administrators and maintain Aspen. And then also we try to integrate as many e-content and digital platforms as possible. So your Overdrive, your Hoopla, your cloud library, we want to live and make like a nice little home for it all in one place in Aspen. And then additionally, since we know that libraries are so much more than just your physical book collections, We want to make sure that users know about things like your programs, your events, your library of things, your seed collections, all those other types of services that are so impactful for your communities. We want to make sure that it's all visible to your users.
Okay, Vicki, talk to us about why you decided to move forward with Koha and Aspen.
Well, probably like so many people, cost is a major factor. And when you have a proprietary ILS system, you're paying for somebody's expertise and you're paying for all of the updates to those systems, but it can really get up there. And if you have a price increase every year, pretty soon, you're spending a lot after a relationship of maybe 15 years or more. And so we really felt like we needed to reevaluate how we were spending our money, because it becomes a big chunk of what you are spending every year in your budget, and to find out if you could do this in a more efficient way. And also interested in getting a more modern look and feel to an ILS system, and to find something that we could afford to do that would be cloud-based, instead of having servers that we had to maintain and pay for as well. So when we looked at the options that were out there in our Florida community, we have some close neighbors here in the Panhandle that have been very loyal Koha users, and they kept saying, you need this, you want this. And so that was a big influence on us. And just we had this conversation for quite a few years of looking at it, thinking about it, what would it take to move? What were the pros and cons? But really to look hard at Koha and have that experience very much driven by the fact that you have lots of functionality, costs so much less, and that you can have a lot more control over what you do without paying somebody else to do it. So we started our conversation in March, and we had a go live date in September in 2021. And I think if I would say anything to somebody, don't make your project bigger than it has to be. We looked at our years and years of piling into our ILS, of adding item types and adding shelving locations and different kinds of patron rules and all that. And it just seemed like a really good idea to start fresh when we were going to migrate to a new ILS and clean up some of that kind of legacy stuff. If you don't move from your house for 20 years, you have no idea what's back there in those closets, stuff that you haven't seen for 19 years maybe, and that you don't use. And I think we had gotten to that point with our ILS experience too, that we were unwieldy. So when we were going to move our data, it was a chance to start fresh and to really brainstorm among the 6 librarians in our cooperative office and think about what we wanted to be and start in that way instead. So what we found was our experience was really enhanced by the migration team that we had. You had people that were going to help you that had done this before, so you don't have to have the panic about it. And you knew that you didn't really have to do it all by yourself. You were given the tools and the information to learn how to map your data so that you're taking it from one system to the other, and figuring out, if you used to call it one thing, do you want to call it another thing? This is the time that you can make that happen behind the scenes. And it can get pretty complicated, especially when you've decided that maybe you want to redesign, your whole way of thinking about how you use your ILS. But it was a wonderful thing to have a fallback system, to know that Donna, your educator, is back there and she's not going to let you fall, and she's not going to, be concerned if you have your little freak out, fits because, you're worried about things. You don't have to do it by yourself. The support is there if you need it. And it's a very calming and nice experience to have. And maybe I should say, this is my first migration ever. So we migrated from the proprietary system to Koha and Aspen, and because it felt like a really good idea at the time, also to an integrated library calendar from Library Market, because it worked with Aspen and we wanted everything to be together in the same system. And maybe it's also relevant that in our office there are 2 of us and we do a lot of other things besides migrate software systems. So if we did it and we're still here and somewhat sane, pretty much anybody can.
Because you're superheroes that you can do all of this and still do your day-to-day job, board meetings and everything else
like
that is happening. Now,
but
what about
it was a good experience and people love it. They love the fresh new look. You know, we've had overwhelming positive response. And interestingly enough, we've had people say, wow, you know, with the new system, now I can save my checkout history or, you know, do some other activity. Mm-hmm. And the truth was they could have done that before too, but they had not discovered it because it just wasn't as easy for them to see and to have access to controlling their own account in the way that we really expect to do in a modern retail environment.
What about patron feedback? Vicki, how has that been?
It has been good. You know, we find that it's easy, and even when we're helping guide people to say, okay, you're going to find something, you know, on our site, and that would be something that I think I didn't mention yet, is that one of the key reasons we wanted to have Koha and Aspen is because we needed this to be our website. And Aspen gave us all that customizable, beautiful graphics and really appealing patron look, mm-hmm. and a good patron experience. So having that was always in the cards. We never did consider just going with Koha because we have not had an outside hosted library website for a long time. We needed to have something we could control and access without having it sit on the county IT side where no one can touch something because it's on the server except somebody in county IT. That's not helpful for the way libraries need to react and keep changing information. Our patrons love that there are messages across the top of Aspen that we can put up there and say, hey, we're hiring, or this library is closing at 2 o'clock today. And we can use that just to highlight, you know, new functionality and call their attention to it. They like the browsability of it because they see the book jacket covers when they're browsing the catalog, and it really is much more enjoyable. And again, kind of that Amazon experience, if you will, of going to a bookstore, an online store, and interacting with the way that you want to see your content. We have laid on a kind of a landing page now. You know, we're looking here at our catalog front page there, and we decided that we needed to have more attention called to some of the other things that libraries do. So we were really able to easily design a landing page and have that be the front page of our site, and then still with very clear ways for how people can jump to browsing the catalog and enjoying that experience as well.
I love that you have this in here that they can jump. That system messages is just a perfect way. Like if you have to close earlier or something happens, it's great.
Yeah, I love how you have all of your like e-content, like clearly all your resources. It's just very
yes, visual. And this was so lovely to be able to have lots of options in the way we could lay this out and to be able to learn it pretty quickly. One of the things that we did do was reach out to some of the other Aspen libraries. Uinta is one of them that you see a feature on someone's site and you think, ooh, I like that. Mm-hmm. Well, you just call them or email them and they share the code or they walk you through how to do it. And that is a wonderful part of being part of an open source community. As we're looking at the site, another thing that we really liked was the ability to control the menu options across the top there. Yeah. And then even to be able to offer different things in the hamburger menu there by where a person signs into their account. So we can give people different ways to find the same content and be more assured that it's going to work for people in the way that they like to use it. We love the ability to compress blocks of content. So like right there, get a library card or who's on the governing board or whatever it is. So if you're using this on your phone, and we know that more and more people are, you're not scrolling through this massive amount of content to get to the thing that you really wanted to see. It's a very browsable, and having that truly mobile responsive look was also a really important factor in our choice.
Oh, it's excellent, Vicki. Okay, talk to us about lessons learned during the migration. This is what everyone's salivating for.
Oh yeah. So I think, as I mentioned earlier, less definitely would have been more in our desire to completely reinvent ourselves, to reinvent the way that we labeled our shelving locations and our item types. And we tried to do all of that, make all those decisions before we actually migrated, and with the thought that then things could be converted during migration. And that is true. And that is very helpful. So if you have a collection that you're going to call something else, you map that out ahead of time, and it just happens magically behind the scenes and you don't have to do it. So that part's pretty lovely, but perhaps we didn't need to try to totally reinvent ourselves at the time that we were migrating to 3 new software products and conducting staff training and doing some other things at the same time. But you know, you get that sense of empowerment, and it's kind of exciting, and you want to do as much as you can do. You know, you have a little anxiety laying in there because you think, oh, you know, once we cut the cord on this other thing, you know, we can't go back. And if this turns out to be a bad idea, or we've really screwed something up, you know, yeah, you have that. But the support that we got from our education team and the migration team, it's very calming. Everybody speaks in a very calm voice, and no matter how many emails they get or how many tickets you open, nobody thinks that, you know, you're losing it, even if you might be. But it really was nice. The process was nice. I was updated constantly about where we were in moving the data over, and you just really had a sense of calm that this was going well and everything was going to be good, and that you knew, you know, that no one's going to let you fail. And that's it. You know, whatever you're worried about yourself, nobody's going to let that happen. And that's really what you're looking for there, is someone to kind of shepherd you through the process, say, hey, did you think about this? Other libraries have done this. And that's what I think was valuable too, was because there's such a history with Koha, that you know what other libraries have done, what worked for them, or because you've dealt with so many different libraries, there's going to be one in somebody's memory that had the same kind of experience or need that you do, and you can learn from what happened with them and have a path toward what you might like to do. And that made it a lot easier too.
And I know Cal will probably attest to the same thing that I'm about to say, but like, that's what we love about our job every day, is working with libraries. It gives us that piece of still being in the library itself, that, you know, we can help do whatever we can to make that process easy for you. And we love it.
Yeah, that's where you get your satisfaction. We're your customer. Yeah, I get that.
I said that the other day because we had like an influx of tickets for libraries that are going through the migration process, like expressing those same kind of sentiments. And we of course know, okay, it's going to come. They're about a week out, you know, whatever it is. And I just said, wow, I felt like I worked like the reference desk on a Sunday all by myself today. And like, it gave me that like warm fuzzy for like why I became a librarian in the first place. So it's the same thing. It's just a different angle.
I've done my part to give you guys as many fuzzies as you can handle, because we've been very needy. But you know, that was another thing, is you never felt like anything was too much. No matter how many times you're asking maybe the same question, just wording it differently, or you know, how many times you need to be reassured that, you know, this is not going to go south on you. That's there, and that's very wonderful.
It's awesome. So we gave you a little sneak peek of what the catalog looks for. And I think this is to tell us mostly, Vicki mentioned this, patrons are accessing, from their mobile devices, from a desktop or laptop computer, and providing that experience for them is so important. And I think that's where we wanted to hit on, accessibility. We want to be wherever they're at. And Vicki, you hit the nail on the head when you were talking about the collapsing of the options when you go into a website. It drives me crazy when I go to a site on my phone and I'm just like scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, or things pop out. And Aspen does a really nice job of condensing everything so they can find it.
That's absolutely true. And, that was something really important to us, and still is, of course, but that user experience. And we are always testing on different devices and looking at it in different ways and trying to think ahead to what might be an obstacle to a person, or how might someone look for something differently, and give them different ways to find it. And this is so flexible. It really is. And again, if you don't know how to do something, maybe there's one of the partners out there that is already doing it and you can learn from them, or failing that, you just put your ticket in and somebody else does it for you. It's like magic from the sky, which is also a lovely thing.
I love that. Tell us, these are two great stories that you shared with us. Tell us about the success stories you have with Koha and Aspen.
Well, I think, we all have unique situations or problems that we need an ILS to solve for us. In Koha, one of the things that we really love are the attributes that can be assigned to your different types of patron categories. So it's going to be like a drop-down list of criteria or characteristics. For us, we need to keep track of the tax districts in which people live. So I mentioned that we have 6 cities within our county, and the county doesn't have any libraries. And sometimes people want to know, where does the use in libraries come from? Where do people live? And if I'm one of those cities, how many people am I serving from other parts of the county? So we have tax districts that are assigned within the county, and we needed a way to enter those codes into Koha so that we could keep track of where that was coming from. And now we can run reports on that. And we can say, here's where the circulation at library A came from people who live in this tax district. And that's really helpful. And we also use those attributes in the different types of patron categories that we have. We have our basic fee-free person who lives here. And then we have courtesy accounts, for example. People who are active duty in the military, but maybe they live in a neighboring county. People who are here for a brief time and they're going to get a courtesy account. People who don't live here, but they own property here, so they pay property taxes. There are a lot of different reasons why someone might not be paying for an account, even though they don't appear to meet the criteria for not paying a fee. So being able to assign those criteria when you're setting up a person's library account keeps other staff from asking them annoying questions, about why aren't you paying, or just answering the question before it comes up and say, oh, okay, we are doing this right. This person has a free account because they meet this criteria. We provide a family account for people who live in neighboring counties. So only one person in the family needs to pay, but maybe there are 6 or 7 people total in the family. We don't want the other people to be getting a bill or being asked, about paying. So again, we can set up a patron attribute that says courtesy account because they're a family member of someone who is a paid member. And then that is really easily identifiable, as well as the ability to pull any kind of data off of that if you would like to do that.
I think one of the neatest features too of Koha is just that ability to kind of make it fit for what your library needs. I know, Vicki, when we were talking about this, reciprocal borrowing is, something a lot of our Florida counties share things interlocally, and that's another way that you can create an attribute for reciprocal borrowing and then make that attribute and then report upon it in the, reporting module. So there's so many options to really customize it and make it work for your library. All right, Vicki, tell us about this cool Who Knew Wednesday feature that y'all do.
Who Knew Wednesday is an email that we send out every Wednesday to the combined staff of the library cooperative. So among the 6 city libraries, there are about 65 to 70 total people who work in those libraries. And they don't work for me. I kind of work for them, but we're the liaison. There are 2 of us here, and we're the liaison between all the libraries in the county and all the sharing that we do. So getting information out to everybody can be a challenge. And so we hit upon this idea of sending out a weekly email to just give people a tidbit of information, or make sure that people know a policy or a change that's happened, or that they're aware of a service that the library has implemented, and how it might affect them, and what they might want to know. Because, everybody wants to be smart. You don't want to be the person standing there at the desk being asked a question by a customer and you don't know how to help them change their password in their account or find something. So Who Knew Wednesday really was born about the time we started with Koha and Aspen and knew that we were going to be migrating, because it was a way to get the information out to everyone at the same time and make sure the message filtered down to every single person. And so we try to make it fun. We try to make it kind of silly with fun pictures in it, and sometimes hide a link, to, if you've been reading this far, tell me and I'll send you a piece of chocolate, kind of a thing. But we use it for things like, hey, did you know in Aspen, you can use power searching and search events, as well as searching items in the library catalog. So give them examples. So if you want to go in and search for story time, or you search for crafts, not only are you going to find the books that you have, maybe instructional DVDs, anything on Overdrive, but you're also going to find the entries on our library calendar. So you may find a crafting class, or you can find all of the listings for story time with that one search there up at the top in Aspen. So that was a recent topic. And we've done other things like talking about the tax districts, that we were talking about. Just that's a great way to take those screenshots out of Koha and put them in an email and share them with all the staff. I think one of the reasons that our transition was so excellent is that we did a lot of preparation with staff. And we had Camp Koha, which was our annual staff continuing education day. And we devoted it all to Koha when we had our on-site training. So we got to use the Emergency Operations Center for the county, where they had a great big room and lots of banks of computers that we could all sit at. And we had all Koha all day long. And having that hands-on practice and being immersed in the process all the way through, I would add that to my list of lessons learned and best practices. Is the more people can know before this happens, the happier everyone is.
Awesome.
I just love your approach to the education piece, because so at Bywater, for our partners or anyone else who's interested in signing up, so we have Monday Minutes for Koha. You have your staff, now they get the Who Knew Wednesdays. And then for Aspen, we do Aspen Weekly every Thursday. And then we do a Koha question of the week every Friday. So we need a library out there who's watching, who is doing something on Tuesdays to let us know, so that we can fill the full week.
Yes, we do. Oh, that's great. Vicki, what's your next steps?
Well, I think our website is always a work in progress. You get the basics up and going. We migrated in September, so we're right at about the 6-month mark. And I was expecting to still be putting out fires and fixing problems, and really that's not been the case. I used one of my Who Knew Wednesdays, in fact, to say, okay, lay it on me. We've been on this system for 5 months or 4 months, whenever it was. So tell me all the things that are wrong, and now I will go back and try and figure out what to do. And I got nothing. It was crickets. It was awesome, because I was really worried that I was going to be buried with all of these. This doesn't work the way we thought it would. So I think the learning curve was done. And really, it was easy. It is easy for people to learn and do. For the website, Aspen's now where we want to really concentrate more of our attention, because we want to keep growing that and making it more accessible for people, adding more of the things that we think they want to see. We always want people to be discovering something new when they use it. Think we would like to be a little more involved in the open source community, not as programmers, certainly not, but as people who might have something to share one of these days. We'll have some experience, and maybe we can give back in the way that people have given to us. And of course, we're really interested in LIDA, because having an app is something that lots and lots of people want. And in the pre-open source world, you were going to pay for that, and that was not going to be something that we could ever do. It just was not. So we're watching as LIDA is developed and testing it every time, and giving them some feedback, because we want that to be something that our customers can use and enjoy.
So everything you just mentioned is contributing to the community already. So thank you for, it's not about being a coder or developer, because I don't know how to do any of that myself, but just showing up and, sharing your experience, and that feedback is what we use to drive our improvements in our development. So that is just so appreciated. So especially with LIDA, so our Aspen app, a lot of testing, like you said, it came out publicly like in November of 2021. So it's pretty new. And we've just kind of done some new releases in the last month or so that have really added some new functionality that we're excited about. But we definitely need people to actually be using it and, giving us that feedback. So thank you so much for that involvement. It's
careful what you wish for.
Yeah, no.
And I think another thing that we really want to do is grow some of our own experts. And we do have great support from Bywater, and we know that, but we also are really enjoying having that control and that power to make choices and to put them into place ourselves. We have some staff that are really stepping up and getting very good at SQL. So they're doing, writing some of the reports. So we're not, turning in those tickets and asking for it, because we're able to do it ourselves. And that's pretty darn satisfying. So we're looking at training opportunities for people to increase their skills in SQL, for example, and kind of raising up that next generation of super librarians, so that when people need to come along and be administrators in Koha or for Aspen, that they'll have the tools and the background knowledge that they need.
Awesome. Well, that transitions us right into the next slide. So if you are interested in joining the community, or even finding out more information about Koha, we have some links that we'll also share in the presentation. We mentioned our weekly educational series, Monday Minutes for Koha. You can also sign up for our newsletter. If you're interested in attending monthly meetings, they are open to all, even those who may be interested in learning more about Koha. There's a link to the calendar of all of the events that are happening. And then, of course, we have ongoing webinar series once a month. We talk about different topics about Koha that, again, are open to all users. So if you're interested in learning more, you can check those out.
Yeah, and the same with the Aspen community. Everyone's welcome. It's a budding, like I was talking about at the beginning, a budding community of different users. We have public libraries, consortiums, special libraries using it. We just added some prison libraries. So it's really great to hear all those different voices. But we have a Thursday digital magazine that goes out that you could subscribe to, and it'll show up right in your email box. And we're always talking about new functionality, tips and tricks. We're showing off what other libraries are doing, because a lot of the community, like Vicki talked about, is just sharing. That's where we see a lot of innovation being sparked. Is one library will do, we had libraries that have changed their cover banners, and then now I'll go on library sites and I see 12 libraries that have that same type of cover banner. So that's really cool to see how the sharing spreads to the different libraries. Every month we have an Aspen gathering, again, open to everyone. It's virtual and it's an hour long. And we go over the latest functionality in the latest release. And then we also talk as a community about our priorities. So things that we want to see in developments, changes to workflows, again, opportunities to share what's working for their libraries. And we also have a webinar series every month as well. So every month there's an opportunity to join a Koha webinar or an Aspen webinar, or both.
Yeah, we got this week's Aspen Weekly, and Morgan has that article in there about highlighting your web resources. Yeah. So I'm reading along, and I said, oh my gosh, Dorothy. So here is the link to our library being featured in Aspen Weekly for the way that we have highlighted our web resources, which is the work that she had done. So it is fun to be a part of that and finally get to the point where somebody's looking at you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Vicki, for sharing your experiences during the migration and launch of Koha and Aspen Discovery. Hopefully people out there watching can learn from some of the things that Vicki has shared, and we're just so happy that you could be a part of this process, and welcome to the open source community.
Well, thank you, and thank you to Pasco County and Cisco County or Citrus County, sorry about that, Pasco and Citrus and Washington and the Wilderness Coast Cooperative and the Panhandle Cooperative, all of your Koha Bywater clients who shared with us and helped to make that possible for us.
Yeah, and for everyone who's watching virtually, if you're attending in person FLA, stop by our booth and say hello, because we'll be there.
Yeah, we'll see you in person or online.
Yeah.